Hello, my name is Amanda Greenvoss, and I am an MA TESOL student at PSU. As some of you might remember, during fall term, I sent all of the current IELP teachers a survey asking about your curriculum and whether you explicitly teach singular they in the classroom. Thanks to everyone who completed it. The responses I got said that no one is currently teaching singular they in their classrooms. Well, today, I'd like to make an appeal as to why I think this is an important topic to cover. Then I'll briefly go over the materials I have made and offer them to you to adapt and use as you wish in your classroom. As I understand it, the goals of the IELP program are to improve students' English skills, to prepare students for university classes, and to build their cultural knowledge they can succeed in both American universities and the local community. It is this third point I would like to highlight. Numerous studies have shown that one of the major factors that impacts international student success and causes stress is the cultural difference between their home countries and their university. Huang suggests that faculty members who work directly with international students should explicitly offer more factual and cultural information to help the students adapt. In a liberal university within a liberal city, we would be remiss not to bring up gender identity issues as an important cultural factor. Additionally, some of these students may be undergoing a transition themselves as they move into a new culture of the United States. In a culture that openly embraces LGBTQIA and genderqueer people, a student may find they are able to express aspects of themselves that they were unable to do in their home country. Language classes can be a place where students explore new ways of representing themselves. If we do not introduce these topics and provide the language with which to express these ideas, we risk continuing to suppress and oppress these students. When doing research for this project, the most useful resource I found was a book by Cynthia Nilsson titled Sexual Identities in English Language Education. The major points I took away from the book are as follows. Part of the work of ESL learners is to become culturally fluent. They must be taught the norms of the culture to be able to make sense of what is going on in the place they now live. ESL textbooks are incredibly heteronormative, and the extra effort must be made by the teacher to supplement these gaps. Teachers can create context-appropriate ways of teaching gender and sexuality concepts in the classroom. By increasing the visibility of these marginalized groups as actors in otherwise non-sexuality-related topics, it normalizes their presence. And by not talking about gender identity or sexuality, we are continuing the process of marginalizing those identities. As Nelson puts it, if questions of identity are overlooked or trivialized in the classroom, then historically inequitable patterns may be reinforced, even inadvertently. Nelson's book underscored the importance of finding ways to introduce gender and sexuality concepts into the ESL classroom. Perhaps my biggest takeaway is that teachers can embed examples of LGBTQIA and genderqueer people in everyday lessons. It is more effective to introduce these folks as part and parcel of normal life. We don't need a big discussion on gender or sexuality. Their gender and sexuality are just a part of who they are as they go to the bank, eat dinner with their family, etc. By portraying them in this way, we can demonstrate the cultural norms of our society without it being up for debate. Many people use the singular they in their daily lives without knowing it. Looks like someone forgot their backpack is unlikely to cause any grammarian hackles to raise. Our use of singular they in both formal and informal writing has increased in the past 5 decades as we have made an effort to reduce gender bias in our language. The result of this increase in usage is that singular they is not a new concept when it comes to discussing people whose gender is unknown. Even though its use has increased in the last half-century, ESL textbooks have not kept up, and many neglect to mention its use at all. Outside of the issue of genderqueer pronouns, it is clear that learners need to be taught the use of singular they for unclear gender reference to keep up with modern English writing and speaking conventions. Lack of understanding or awareness of singular they could lead to communication problems for learners. But my primary reason for teaching singular they is to specifically teach students to understand and respect the pronouns of non-binary classmates and professors. I think my motivation to create this project can best be summarized by Darren Lescott. As language instructors who teach speech, acts, and modals for politeness, it has always been our goal to equip students with enough language resources that they do not unintentionally offend others. Personal pronouns should be no different, as they have the potential to affirm or deny personhood for many transgender and genderqueer persons who identify outside the gender binary. I know that all IELP teachers want to prepare their students for success in university studies. You want the students to have the language and cultural skills to be both successful in the classroom and happy and fulfilled in their lives as international university students. It seems to me a grave error to exclude LGBTQIA and genderqueer issues from the teaching materials. Without knowledge of these cultural points and knowledge of how to use singular they successfully, international students could inadvertently offend and create hostility with their classmates without even knowing what happened. So, I've created a lesson plan that covers 2 class periods. I would invite you to explore the materials and feel free to adapt and use them as you see fit. The first presentation walks through an introduction to singular they. It introduces personal pronouns and what they are. We watch a video from the LGBTQ Equity Center on using pronouns, and then give students a chance to introduce themselves using their pronouns. We then play a game of Guess Who, where students can practice asking questions using singular they. Are they wearing a red hat? Do they wear glasses? The first class ends with optional links for people who are interested in learning more about non-binary issues. Following Nelson's 2009 recommendations, I have kept these lessons more about the explicit use of the pronoun and refrained from opening it up to discussion or debate, but I wanted to give some good resources for students who are curious and want to understand more about it outside of class. For the second class, we go into more detail on how to use the pronoun they. We have a deductive lesson on gender pronouns, which allows learners to focus on form and make sure they notice the specific features of using they, them. The class then works in groups to complete a worksheet. The first half of the worksheet allows students to practice using singular they in instances where they don't know the gender of the person they're referring to. The second half has them complete an article about a non-binary celebrity, Demi Lovato, using they-them pronouns correctly in context. This is followed by a video exercise. For this exercise, I enlisted 2 friends to tell short stories about a trip. One friend uses she, her pronouns, and the other uses they, them. The goal is that after watching the videos and trying to write down as much as the students can remember, they will get the transcripts, and then for homework, will be asked to rewrite the travel stories in the third person, using each person's pronouns correctly. In this way, I aim to remove the controversy from the topic of gender identity by having both speakers talk about something not related to their gender or sexuality. I intentionally picked people of color for the learners to relate to. I also chose a self-described butch lesbian friend as my she-her speaker to remove the idea that gender identity can be guessed or assumed by people's appearance. Here's the references I used in putting this presentation together. If you want to do more research about this issue yourself, these are maybe some good places to start. And I hope that the presentation has been useful and maybe has inspired you to incorporate a lesson on singular they into your classroom. Thanks for your time.